The Purple Amethyst channel invites you to listen to an excerpt from Cordia Moscala's novel, Rocky Dragon from Caoulu, read by Cordian V. Moscala. Ladies and gentlemen, dear entrepreneurs and startuppers, good morning everyone. I would like to welcome you to the Founders Breakfast number 395. We'll have to think about a special event to celebrate the 400th meeting, by the way, but we'll let you know about it in the group chat. However, today I would like to welcome you very warmly to the meeting where today's speaker is a long-time companion of our meetings, an entrepreneur, composer, and novelist. Polish by origin, he completed his bachelor studies here in Shanghai, then completed his master's studies in Sevilla, which I can say he finished quite recently. The topic of today's meeting is Find yourself in the most difficult times, how to start a business from scratch. Since Peter has already announced a surprise for us in the group in the form of free tickets for his first concert in Shanghai, I'm asking everyone to stay after taking group picture to draw cards with numbers, which Peter will later read, also randomly selecting cards from the second pot. Without extending the introduction, let us welcome Peter with thunderous applause. When the audience finished applauding, Peter made sure that the presentation was working and that the camera recording the meeting was turned on. After a moment of silence, Peter began his presentation. So, at the very beginning, my dears, I will introduce myself once again. My name is Peter Dworski. My Chinese name is Shu Ting. I come from city of Bielsko-Biała, a city located in southern Poland. Currently, I live in Sevilla, where, and here attention Cain, I will now pursue a PhD in applied psychology. For those who don't know me, in 2019 I came to Shanghai to continue my business studies started a year earlier in Sevilla, which, as we all know, I had to complete with heartache in Poland due to the pandemic. What you will see today on the presentation slides is actually the fruit of the last 4 years of my life, where, after trying to invade my life in 2020, since then I had decided to take charge of my life and do what I so commonly said, I will fulfill all your dreams. I will not tell my biography what and how because as part of therapy, I wrote a book that you could see here at the entrance and which you can buy for 50 RMB. Before I move on to my slides, I would just quickly announce that next Friday I'll be having my own evening at the well-known Studio 9, which is located right opposite to Chair Club, where I will be playing my first concert in Shanghai next Tuesday. Since the tickets are already sold out, I managed to save free for you so that you can draw free numbers after the presentation, so keep your lucky cards until the end. So, to the topic of today's presentation. Finding yourself in the most difficult times. How to start a business from scratch. It all started on a June day in 2024, after the pandemic had long ended and after years of struggling make a living in Krakow after I finished my bachelor's degree, the time came when I decided to do a super crazy thing. Solely with the money I saved on Uber taxi and thanks to the financial support of my uncle, I decided to study for one's master degree and, of course, in Sevilla, to continuing to work as an Uber taxi in sunny Andalusia, where earnings in euro, well, I guess I don't have to explain, are simply earnings in euros. It's like earning money in dollars in China. I won't say it was terribly difficult because in the meantime I already had a quite developed YouTube channel, plus I was already engaged in secular preaching, which allowed me to now have 520,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel, and the number is still growing. During my studies, I was looking for a way to have some contact with Shanghai, where I wanted to develop some Euro-Asian business. And someone would ask, dude, where would you get the money to run a business in China when you barely have enough to live in Europe? The book, The Salt Lamp, and my debut album, In the Space, were my first sources of serious income, which I accumulated after a hard time searching for a publisher to publish my first book and finding a label that would be willing to support my development as a musician. Because classical music, or in my case, neoclassical music, is still a niche, and de facto signing up to the perhaps familiar Decca Records turned out to be the key to my first success as a composer. It was faster for me to publish the book because I translated it into English myself, and of course I originally wrote it in no other language than my native language. It is Polish. Someone might say, okay, how does publishing a book or a CD compare to starting a business? And I answer immediately, contacts. In the same year, I wrote privately to Kain that I was planning my first visit to Shanghai next summer unless something changes, and I'll let you know generally. I would like to come to the Founders Breakfast meetings to return to the old good community. Someone would ask again, how is that you started your master studies in 2024 and only recently finished them? And I will tell you right away that I simply took one gap year because that's how business topics started to develop, which I suddenly started as an Uber taxi. Gather that, as they say. I struck while the iron was hot, and I asked the dean if I could have a year off before my de facto internship, or rather that I could use my internship to develop my business. The dean was understanding. After all, I was doing business studies, only now a master's degree, and he said that if I understood the issues, as they say colloquially, he had no objections. And so it was 2025, January. I came to Shanghai for the first time after 5 years, and I had to learn some places again, but the pandemic and time took their toll. And I also met my girlfriend, Michelle, who is here, to whom I wrote first that I was coming to Shanghai, and whether she didn't want to meet because a few years earlier we met in Krakow on the Krakus Mount. It's a landmark in the city, from where there is a beautiful view of Krakow, which you can see now on the slide. The next picture, I don't know if you recognize it, but yes, it's me at Founders Breakfast when meetings were held at MQ Cafe. I don't know if there is anyone in the room who still remember the old meeting location, and I see a pair of hands here. Okay, now we make a time machine and go to 2027, which is literally last year. I had already published second book, Italica, which I don't have with me here, but it should be available on eBay or Amazon. At that time, I also published already my third album titled Explorious, the songs of which I will not play in Shanghai yet, but from September this year, I'm planning my first tour around Europe with the label, and Shanghai is, in a sense, the only city in Asia where, at least for now, I will perform my first and only one for a while current concert. At that time, 2 years have passed since I started working with the newly established Sino-European business, because my business, although it was originally founded as a Polish business, Dichow Investment already has a branch in Sevilla, where I currently live, and have recently opened branch here in Shanghai, in the beautiful Zhaohejing. which is close to Xujiahui. What do I do? Currently, my leading activity is the import of salt lamps here to China, which I already distribute and sell through platforms such as Taobao and Pinduoduo. In addition, I import Chinese electric cars of various brands to Europe and currently sell them to the so-called Central Europe and Spain. As you can see now on the slide, that is a photo of the office in Zhaohejin. If anyone likes Guilin Park, I'm happy to invite you to my office space. I have one open space room that I rent for business meetings for those who they don't have offices themselves or who simply need to meet in a group of several people only once a week or once a month. And this one room is intended for exactly that purpose. This is not my main business, but I decided to use the space of one room, which by the way literally overlooks Guilin Park, and renting an office is not expensive, only 100 RMB per hour, so a very reasonable price in today's times. Now, from series of motivation, because it's true that from March next year I will be doing doctoral studies in applied psychology, but I must admit that since I entered my life once in a while, I decided to seriously enter and delve into this knowledge. Plus, I entered the topic, what we commonly call awakening. Hands up, who has heard of such a term? Quite a lot of people already, okay. Well, now that I'm landing with my slides, since I've already exceeded the 20 minutes allotted time, can I spare 5 minutes for you? Great. At the very end, I left for you a song that helped me get through my most difficult time, which I will let you play, and I will quote one sentence from it. Epilogue, Young Forever, BTS. At this point, Peter played the announced song from the JBL speaker. As soon as he finished playing it, he continued his presentation. So, my dears, a sentence that I would like you to remember and which I hope will perhaps move someone to action, and if any of you are at the same extreme as I once was, I will only tell you this. My own father once cheated on me, and it was because of him that I wanted to commit suicide. However, thanks God, my mother, my sister, and the song, and then a few other people lifted me from my knees, and that is why today I'm where I am, and today I'm talking to you here. The sentence is as the following. No może dlaczego apadło, kut obsi daline kumulhiache, which means, even though sometimes I fall down and hurt myself, endlessly I'm running towards my dreams. Are you running towards your dreams? Do you have dreams? If not, if you were to take anything away from this meeting, it would be have your own dreams and make them come true. That's it from me. Thank you. When the audience began to applaud loudly, Xu Kanin announced that there would be 5 questions to ask because Peter had a very tight schedule, and that everyone would still have to take a group photo and draw 3 numbers. When the time for a series of questions has passed and the cafe staff took a group photo of all the participants, Xu Kanin prepared a ball with the second ball of numbers, from which Peter was to draw cards with numbers. Number 12, number 8, and number 29. Peter read the drawn cards. Shi Tailong, full of happiness because he had a piece of paper with the number 8 on it, walked towards Peter and shaking his hand, He accepted the ticket from him. Peter quickly reminded about his outdoors evening and quickly left the cafe area because a driver was waiting for him, with whom he was to quickly go to his office to rest before the afternoon meetings. Holy God! These politicians' games! Inspector Tang muttered to himself and immediately called his sub-inspectors. I understand, Mr. Tang, said Mr. Yu, who performed the autopsy on Li Xiang's body. Accepted, said briefly Sub-Inspector Huang, who was responsible for waiting at Mrs. Yang's house. Miss Yang, Inspector Tang began to say on the phone, a police car will come to pick you up. Please come to the corner of East Jefan Road, Chaoyan Road, and we'll pick you up there. Okay, Mr. Inspector. Has anything been explained? Yang Tiefan asked. In the meantime, while drinking Huanzhou, Peter took out his JBL speaker from his suitcase to play his playlist of songs as they returned to the hotel earlier than in previous days, and there was no curfew yet. Peter had his playlist titled April 7th, 2024, because on that day, while on the Krakus Mount, after meeting Michelle, he had a few coincidences, which during meditation the next day he wrote down in form of 25 songs, which helped during his ongoing personal development. To overcome the difficulties so far, they were Coloratura by Coldplay, Good Life, 1-1 Republic, Butterfly Lovers Violin Concerto Part 1 by Vanessa Mae, Ready for It by Taylor Swift, Telepathy by BTS, Waterways, Experience, and Underwood by Ludovico Einaudi, Wonder by Finding Hope, Microcosmos by BTS, My Universe by Coldplay featuring BTS, A Journey by Ludovico Einaudi, Crystal Snow by BTS, Something Just Like This by Coldplay featuring the Chainsmokers, Una Mattina and DNA by Ludovico Einaudi, Always Forever by Cults, Yemi Fine by rapper Earth, Enchanted and Enchanted Taylor's Version by Taylor Swift, Oceans by Hillsong United and Taya, Magic Shop by BTS, his own composition Bambus, Lubię wracać tam gdzie byłem by Zbigniew Wodecki, and Eyes Wide Open by Matrika. This medley of songs was a form of his work on Inner Child, in particular the part where he could listen to the song Enchanted, where he could hear Taylor's voice, like the girl's voice in the original rendition of the song, and the voice of adult woman, which was heard very clearly in the re-recorded song Enchanted, after Taylor Swift was forced to record all her albums from her second album, Fearless, until the album Reputation, because in 2019, Scooter Braun bought her entire catalog of the first 6 albums, which forced the artist to record again version of the albums in order to be able to perform the songs without having to have own copyrights illegally taken away. As the song Butterfly Lovers played, Shi Tailong reminded of the concert he had experienced yesterday, where all the acts of Butterfly Lovers were performed with amazing animations of 2 huge butterflies that danced in the rhythm of the lead violin against the backdrop of Shihu Lake and against the background villages in Shaoxing, where Zhu Yintai came from. It was a beautiful 3 days, Peter. Shi Tailong began to speak after a while. Really, I'm taking a bow to you for showing around Hangzhou, he added. My pleasure, Frank, said Peter and began to explain the origins of his playlist. Let me tell you, I admire that you listen to BTS, Peter, Shi Tailong said, because K-pop was quite popular in China, but dominated by C-pop, which was the equivalent of K-pop, and due to the influence of government propaganda, it was more widespread, while many times K-pop has been blocked from streaming. When the next Chinese year came, it was February 1st, 5:11 a.m. A cold Thursday morning wasn't the best Shi Tailong could have expected as he headed to Pudong Airport to take flight to Beijing, from where he could then connect with Lot Polish Airlines to Warsaw, where Kamil, Peter's friend, who owned the apartment, would pick him in Zablocie sub-district, where Shi Tailong was supposed to live after he received an invitation from Peter to come to Poland during the Chinese New Year. Since it was his first trip abroad, he was very nervous to make sure everything worked out, because at the beginning of July, Yan Tianfang was supposed to buy a house in Biyun sub-district in Jinqiao town through his hukou and move in at the beginning of August. Because at that time, Kan Lui became pregnant with Zheng Haoxi. She moved in with him, leaving Shi Tailong alone with the apartment, where Yan Tianfang moved in so that she could now sell the house in Changsha and move to Shanghai. From all the property in the house, she only took the piano and some of the dishes she still had from her mother so that she could have them here in Shanghai. The piano was temporarily transported to the house of Mr. Mao, who agreed to help Shi Tailong as he was a very good renter. Yan Tianfang, because she was already retired, could no longer apply for the Shanghai hukou, but she could fully benefit from medical services as a family of Shi Tailong. When it was the time to board the plane, Shi Tailong thought that he was on board of Shenhu Airlines for the first time since he last lost his job. He was initially afraid that there would be someone on board who would recognize him. Because he wanted to be comfortable during the flight, he bought business class tickets for both flights. When boarding Shenhu Airlines, he breathed a sigh of relief because he didn't see anyone he knew on board, nor did he hear any familiar names in the welcome announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Mr. Zhu Min's crew, the captain of this plane, He Dongtian, is speaking to you. We warmly welcome you on board Shenhu Airlines flight SHA 2307 to Beijing Daxing International Airport. Flight time is 1 hour and 50 minutes. The temperature there is -7 degrees. Scheduled arrival at the airport is 9:50 a.m. Together with Mr. Zhu Min's crew, I wish you a pleasant flight. Before the plane took off after demo, Shi Tailong recalled all the commands and procedures he had learned during the training and was happy that he was sitting in a place where he could serve in a possible evacuation, accepting the learning of emergency aid training without revealing his knowledge of the procedure. After the plane took off, he made the sign of the cross, as Peter once taught him, and thought it would be a good moment to enter into meditation with Jesus for a moment, even though he had never been to church before. Once the plane took off, they made a circle over Dishway Lake towards the sea, which allowed Shi Tailong to have a view of the West and North Island and the Dishway Lake symbol from above. Delighted with the view, he recalled how, when he was cabin crew, he could see Dishway Lake every time the plane took off in that direction, and he could look at the lake through a small window in the plane's door. Now, when he could look out the passenger window for the first time in a long time, he turned on the music and started listening to the album 1989 by Taylor Swift, which reminded him of his relationship with Du Hui, who this year had her 2 years as a cabin crew, but this time she was not on board. When the song Blank Space started playing, the plane reached cruising altitude and the cabin crew started handing out hot snacks and teas. Since it was the so-called B2 service, they were not yet required to have a hot snack plus hot dish, which was already the case of the flight to Changchun, where Service C was already required, and on the flight to Urumqi, even Service D was required. When the song Wildest Dreams started playing, they were flying over the city of Qingdao, over which there were clouds, and a reflecting halo was visible, and at the moment the plane slowly began to approach landing. Today, on the route to Warsaw, we will experience minor turbulence at the height of Siberia, then it may possibly hit us, but we do not expect any severe turbulence, said Captain Borek during the crew briefing to Warsaw. Would you like anything during the flight? Asked Anna, who was the senior cabin crew on this flight. In the 5th hour, when I finish my nap, you can give me a tray of dinner and orange juice to drink, said Captain Borek. For me, there will be green tea with dinner, said First Officer Moskala. The emergency code has not changed. If someone took over our plane, it will be the same as usual, said Captain Borek, concluding the crew briefing. In meantime, Anna Pruszynska was senior cabin crew of the deck. In business class, she was accompanied by Paulina Nowicka, who was a friend of Peter, with whom she cooperated in running his artistic activities as a manager, while also working as cabin crew at Lot Polish Airlines. She knew from Peter that his friend from China would be sitting in the 1 Alpha seat and that she was to give him the cabin crew smile, which was a practice among cabin crew at Lot. Paulina promised that she would try to give her friend very special treatment, especially since she knew that he was a former cabin crew and that this was his first flight abroad from China. Her groupmate Vanessa, who was CC-free on this flight, came to report her cabin check. After a while, Paulina approached Anna and reported cabin check completed, security check completed. Saturday morning was much cooler, with the first fog of the year. A strong inversion also appeared on the windows. According to the forecast, the weather that day was supposed to be sunny with a possible light wind and a temperature of 10 degrees, which was quite a high temperature for the end of February, but compared to the last decade, more and more often within the average range. When Shi Tailong and Peter arrived at the place of family Constellation by car, they went upstairs together, where Eva and her team and several people were already there, including Isabel and Monica, whom Peter already knew from the previous family constellations. The women, surprised by the appearance of a foreigner on the family constellation here in Poland, and also from Asia, could not hide their surprise and immediately approached Shi Tailong and Peter. Hi Peter, Isabel greeted in Polish. It's nice to see you here with your friend, she continued in English. Hello, my name is Frank, Shi Tailong introduced himself immediately. Isabel, the woman introduced herself and offered her hand. Oh wow, that's so different, Shi Tailong said, feeling a bit awkward because in China, women usually do not shake hands. Frank has already learned a bit about Europe, but there are still many new things for him, said Peter, seeing Shi Tailong's slight confusion. What a handsome guy he is, Monica said in Polish and introduced herself in English. So, how long have you been in Poland? Isabel asked. Well, I came here 3 weeks ago, more or less, and in fact I came at the invitation of Peter, whom I met in my hometown, Shanghai. Shi Tailong began to say. Can I hear your name in Chinese? Monica asked, and at that moment Eva came to greet them and was happy to see Shi Tailong. Dear friends, I'm sorry that I might interfere with you here. I wanted to say hello to you and to my friend here, Eva started to say. Shi Tailong, but you can call me Frank, replied Shi Tailong, introducing himself to Eva while saying his Chinese name. Shi Tailong, Eva, Monica, and Isabel repeated correctly. Oh wow! I was afraid that you would be some Wang Qian Loi or some other more difficult name, said Monica, surprised. Well, sometimes we have simple names, but I can also break my tongue while names like Kazimierz, said Shi Tailong, tried again to pronounce the name Casimir correctly. No worries, you will stay in Poland for 2 years and you'll learn, Isabel said jokingly and let Eva talk. First of all, I am delighted and proud that you appeared on Family Constellation here in Poland, Frank. Eva started to speak. I will tell you that I have already had several people from abroad in my place, but you are the first Asian I will set up. So let me ask you first, do you have any idea what Family Constellation is? Have you ever heard of it? Do you have anything like that in China? She asked to know if Shi Tailong had any knowledge about the constellation and whether it was topic even known in Asia. I must admit that I only learned about constellation from Peter, and he actually told me a little about this method so that I had some idea about this method. But no, it doesn't exist in China. At least I don't know anything about it, nor have I ever encountered it before this topic. Well, Peter, the door is open. All you have to do is quickly become a PhD student and fly to China, said Eva and hugged him, as she didn't greet him during the conversation yet. If Frank doesn't understand something, I will explain it to him during the breaks, but I think that visual observations alone will help him a lot, said Peter when he and Eva finished hugging. Of course, I will conduct the workshop in Polish, only the introduction where I introduce general knowledge about the constellation and what awaits us, I will say in English, but since there are only 24 hours in a day, the rest will be in Polish. Apart from Frank's constellation, of course, she said. Eva went to sit on the couch, and more people were gathering. When all participants arrived in the room, Eva waited until everyone was seated so that she could start the workshop. Good morning, everyone. For those who don't know me yet, my name is Eva Przybyla. I am a doctor of sociology as well as a coach, therapist, and specialist in toxic relationships. Among other things, I wrote the book Anti-Human, The Dark Side of Human, as well as another book, Lucky You. In the constellation, it is in the workshop we are currently attending. We deal with family constellation that Bert Herllinger initiated in practice by observing the Zulu tribes with whom he was on a mission. Later, after returning to Europe, he started running constellations himself, which are also called Herllinger's constellation. It is constellation using Bert Herllinger's method. I will briefly tell you what the family constellation is, namely, conventionally, as we have had for many years, in the rectangle between the pillar and the external wall of the building in which we are located, as well as across the entire width from the door to the next room to the windows next to you, with exception of the place where the couch is, there is a whole field, a whole place where representatives that I choose randomly come to the field and represent the person that we do constellation to, as well as the people, buildings, and other elements that the field tells us to set up. These people in the field, their task is to feel the energy, and it's the best to not interpret what you feel with your mind, but with your heart with your whole body. Since today we have our friend Frank at the workshop, who came to us from China, from Shanghai, let me shorten my introduction today so that I can say the same thing in English, and we'll go straight to Constellation. When Eva finished speaking the introduction in English, she looked at the list prepared on her laptop by her assistant, and in the first place was Monica, then Sam, and then Shi Tailong, which made Eva happy because she hoped that when he was after his own constellation, maybe the field will choose him to be a representative sooner. When it was Shi Tailong's turn, Eva, after reading the description, looked a little longer to see who could fit into this constellation, because she had a feeling that she would have to invite more people to the field. Thank you for listening to a fragment of the novel Rocky Dragon from Caoulu. The entire book is being prepared for publication. Support Kordia Moskala's donation and join in supporting his debut with the publication of the first books from the European Saga series. The link to the donation can be found in the description.